Another day. Another day. The law of the day. March 9th. That's today. Impatience is your enemy. And the quote is, patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. The greatest impediment to creativity is your impatience, the almost inevitable desire to hurry up the process expressing something and make it a splash. What happens in such a case is that you do not master the basics. You have no real vocabulary at your disposal. What you mistake for being creative and distinctive is more likely an imitation of other people's style or personal rantings that do not really express anything. Audiences, however, are hard to fool. They feel the lack of rigor, the imitative quality, the urge to get attention, and they turn their backs or give the mildest praise that quickly passes. The best route is to love learning for its own sake. Anyone who would spend 10 years absorbing a technique or conventions of their field, trying them out, mastering them, exploring, personalizing them, would inevitably find their authentic voice and give birth to something unique and expressive. It's a good one. Impatience. So I saw that page when I first got this book because it goes day by day. So naturally I'm like, okay, let's see what my birthday day is. And I turned the page and it says, impatience is your enemy. So that word's been following me around. Patience, being the word, has been following me around my whole life as far back as I can remember. I remember in school, I think it was grammar school. I forget what grade specifically. But I remember in school we had a project where everybody was given like character traits to do a report on. And people got stuff like courage and honor and like all these really kind of cool words. And I got my word and it was patience. I was like, what? Like, that's not cool. Patience. So that's what I had to do my report on. But it turned out I should have did a better job at the report, because had I I probably would have avoided a lot of unnecessary experiences that, well, maybe they were necessary experiences. See, I don't know how to look at it. Maybe because I was impatient, I wouldn't have had some of the experiences I had. But maybe had I not had those experiences, I would have had other ones. Who knows how to look at it? This whole thing called life is interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, patience. Let's see how that dovetails into what I'm reading in my 33 Strategies of War. What comes out of here real quick? Let's see. Self-Reliance. That's the title of a section right there in that book. That's super important. I'm barely learning that right now at this mid stage of life that I'm in, is self-reliance. I found it too easy in the circumstances I was in to be able to rely on other people. And they made it easy for me to do that, but what that does is handicap you in the area of being self-reliant. And that's not a good thing. Because you want to be able to take care of yourself. That skill is something you want to acquire very early in life. And I know some people are thrust into that because maybe they're in a situation where they have to take care of themselves. Like maybe they have Like, I had a friend when I was growing up, single mother household. It was him, his older brother, and his mom. And he had to become self-reliant pretty early because she worked. And after school, he would walk home. He would have the keys to the house. Or maybe, a lot of times we would give him a ride home. But there was, I think, a situation where he had to, make his own food. And, had to learn to take care of himself pretty early. I think my girlfriend, too, to a certain degree, she kind of grew up that way, where she had to become self-reliant. Which is why her mind is so good at the mechanics of life. Where I, on the other hand, am not so good at this. I don't know. Impatience and self-reliance. Patience and self-reliance is what you want to have. Be patient with becoming self-reliant? I don't know. Maybe. Tunes on. So patience. Let's see. In my life now, I am in a rush to do nothing. I've been in a rush my whole life to do things. I guess when I was super young, like graduating high school, I was miserable living at home with my parents because they fought a lot. I think at the time my dad was still drinking a lot. And my memory is not the best, but a lot of my memory of that time in my life is just hearing my parents fight. Just arguments. Not physical fights. I think maybe once or twice I heard some sort of physical activity. But I don't think he ever hit her. Maybe it was a push or a shove. Who knows? I don't even know. But the first chance I got, I left. And unfortunately for me, or who knows, maybe this is just all the way it had to work out. I should probably start judging it as being either fortunate or unfortunate, but when I met my very first girlfriend, who eventually became my wife, she had her own place, but she was a mother young. Super young. 16, I believe. 17, she had her first child. So she had to become self-reliant. And the result of that is when I met her, she had her own apartment already, her own little place. So when my life became miserable and I left and stayed with her, and I'm looking back, I'd always thought, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I was just being impatient, because I never really had my own place, to myself. And then ended up having, after we met, we ended up having a kid early. And it just seemed like after that point, after getting married and having my first kid, it's just I don't know if patience played a role in that. But I know it stunted my growth in terms of being self-reliant. So after that whole disaster of marriage came to an end, I didn't want to do the same thing because I'd met my girlfriend at the tail end of that. The girlfriend that I am with now, my woman. I don't like saying girlfriend. It sounds like an immature phrase to use for the kind of relationship I have with her. But I've already tainted the title of wife, so she'd never want to be that. So she is my woman. think we've been together for 16 years? I think 16 years. And she's it for me. But going back to when we met, I didn't want to do to her how the first situation unfolded. So I didn't. The way I remember, she asked me to stay with her. Because at the time I had left that old situation. And I was, going home every night to my parents' house where I was staying. Because I didn't want to invade her space. She had her own place and it was hers, and I didn't want to feel like I was taking it over, and kind of felt like an echo from what had happened before. So I let that unfold on its own. The way I remember is she asked me to stay with her, just stay. So I did. And that's how our little adventure started together. Which is a much better story. It's pretty wild, but it's a much better story than the first one. And I guess, let's see how patience plays into this. And I know she hates me telling the story, but it has to be told because that's kind of how it unfolded. So the job we were both at, me and my girlfriend, my woman, sorry. The job we were both at, we ended up leaving. We just parted ways, let's just say. And we ended up having a little urban camping adventure. And I really didn't know what to do. And it felt like, I don't know, it's a weird thing to explain my mindset as we were kind of going through this. I didn't know what to do or when to do it. But what ended up happening was, as my mind was spiraling into darkness, my woman was trying to help keep me positive and focused, and that's when dogs came into play. And that's because my mom's dog. I already told this story a million times, but it was my mom's dog that kind of sparked that little interest in dogs for me. And if I remember correctly, it was my girlfriend that was like, "Oh, we should go volunteer, just like some rescues off of Ventura Boulevard." Rock and Rescue being the first one, I think, that we went to go volunteer at, if I remember correctly. But then it was the Animal Hope and Wellness Foundation that I don't name often, but I just did. That was in Sherwin Oaks. And the story behind that place was what really piqued my interest. I had no idea the dog meat trade was as pervasive in other countries as it is. But as soon as we went there, that's when my mom was like, "Okay, enough sitting in the car, enough camping." Kind of gave me a purpose to go to this place and do this thing. So that's kind of felt like when my patience for just not doing anything not ended, but it felt like the time was right to start doing something, and that's the something that it turned out to be, which I guess in retrospect was good timing. It was a great decision. I mean, to be honest, the apartment I'm in now is because of the founder of that. Well, yeah, actually, yeah. He had actually went and got us an apartment, but that turned out not to be. It was just the area our car got broken into. It was just turning into like a thing. So we couldn't stay there. We ended up just using that place to just, go shower. And we were still kind of urban camping. So then we found this little place, and I told him about it, and he ended up co-signing for us on this. But even then, it's like we were both working. So right now, as I record this, I'm being self-reliant to the point where I'm taking care of everything for us, which I kind of enjoy. Kind of like the challenge of it. It's a little bit nerve-wracking at times. But it just feels like this is how it has to be for right now. Not has to be. I hate using that phrase. This is just how it is for right now. Back to patience, yeah. I guess don't rush things. Let kind of things unfold on their own, and when you see an opportunity that you absolutely can't pass up, you just gotta jump all over it, like I did with my woman. Like I saw this amazing thing, this amazing little creature enter into my life, and I had any intentions at all. We were just friends, and I was always friends with women or girls growing up. So it was kind of like, that's what it kind of felt like it was. But the more I got to know her, I was like, oh man, this chick, I was going to use the word chick. This chick's perfect. And perfect in the to the effect that I'd never, ever met anybody like her. Like everybody else just kind of seemed the same. Like the same kind of person, just in a different body. But this girl was just so different than anybody I'd ever met. Just with the way her mind works and just her personality, and I was like, how could I not be attracted to this? That's what eventually ended up happening. And it just kind of went from there. And I've enjoyed every moment with her for the past 16 years. So yeah, that's what's been going on. And that's what came out of my mind right now. Off of impatience is the enemy, being the daily law, and the section title of Be Self-Reliant, out of the 33 Strategies of War, which is a fantastic book. I was telling my mom about that book. She should get that book. I was telling her, and then she said, "Let me borrow it." I'm like, "Nope, I don't loan out my books." I don't think she liked that. Or maybe she was just playing around. She was like, "I'm your mother." I said, "Yes, you are. But you are not getting this book from me." Yep, that's the one thing I will not loan out. I won't loan out anything anymore, to be honest. But especially one of my books, nope. It's like giving you my Bible. Heck no. You gotta get your own. But the real reason I told my mom about that, because I don't really talk to my kids. It's kind of like a mutual decision. I mean, I don't really have much to say to them other than, like, you know, I can give them the Cliff Notes life hacks that I've learned real quick. that's kind of why I told her about this book. Because really it's the 33 Strategies of War, but the things in this book, the way I told my mom, I was like, when I told her about it, I was like, think of it in the Love is a Battlefield. I think that was a song. Yeah, love is a battlefield. I was like, take this book in that kind of metaphorical way. Because any kind of relationship is a battlefield. Right? You know, there's conflict management, there's resource management, there's, morale of the team. This all applies to any kind of relationship, not just war or what goes on an actual battlefield. So I told my mom about it just so she could tell my girls, because she sees my girls a lot. And if they could learn these things, because they're still young, well, in their 20s. My youngest is, how old is she now? I want to say like 18, maybe 19, 17, 18, 19, one of them. She's in there somewhere. My other ones are easier to remember the age, because the first one was born the year I got married. So that was 98, which makes her going on, what, 26, she's going to be 28, I think, this year. And the second oldest was born in 2000, which is easy to remember, so that makes her 26 this year. And I think Abigail's like 18. Or going to be 19, something like that. So they're still kind of young enough, and I don't know how much. I doubt they have the people around her or them that would be encouraging the information that I find helpful. So that's the only reason I brought it up. I just, if I come across something that's like, man, this is like a hack for life, like a cheat code, I'll send it to my mom and tell her to tell the girls. Just tell her you came across it. Don't tell them it came from me. It came from me. Yep, everybody likes to ride on my butt because I'm not driving fast anymore. So you have to go around. F off. Thank you. Let's see what else. What else is going on in the world? Pretty sure we're still at war with Iran. I don't care about that. What else? That's pretty much it. Not very talkative this morning. Picked up a day of work yesterday. Not yesterday. The day before yesterday, on Saturday. At my dog job. That was easy. And I was there yesterday. That was a very low impact day. All the dogs behaved. Except this one dog, he gets kind of shitty. Sorry, because his name's Cash. He's a good boy, but dogs get curious about each other, so they go and they'll smell him, and he'll show his teeth. And I've seen him actually go for a dog. so I know he will. But he listens really good. So as soon as I hear his growl and I see him like showing his teeth, I'm like, hey, he looks at me, just stops. It's really cute. But he listens really good. But if you don't keep an eye on it and that happens, he'll do something. See, it just goes to shows, because I'm just reminded me I'm like in the middle of a comment issue, not a comment issue, or like I'm in the comments right now about an account that does nothing but show images and stories about pit bulls killing people and mauling children. It's a horrible account. But it just goes to show you, it's not just those dogs that have that in them. It's every dog, really. Has the potential for that. It's just that pit bulls are strong. They're gonna mess somebody up. They find it in them to do it. This is the best part of the ride because I get to coast all the way down this hill. Because right now my main concern is gas. Doing the same thing. They're all coasting, but one jumped behind me. He thinks I'm going to go faster. That is not the case. Yep. Go around. So no energy drink on the way to work today. I'm only about halfway here. I feel it kick in. But nothing today. So I shall be surviving off of coffee. Suggestion box at work, thinking about caffeine. There's a little suggestion box at work. I'm gonna ask them, because I remember when I used to go to Whole Foods a lot, they used to have like they used to make like loose leaf yerba mate. I used to get that, like a cup of that. I'm gonna see if they're willing to do that. Get like loose leaves so we can make like a whole decanter of mate. Or mate. I like to call it mate. That's how it looks. M-A-T-E. It's mate. That's my mate. Because that'd be better to drink than coffee. Coffee's okay, but I like my mate. have a lot on my mind today. Oh, I saw on a post before I left. I don't know how they do these things, but supposedly I'm probably getting this wrong somehow, but supposedly I guess they mapped out the circuitry and the architecture of the mind of a fly, you know, like the insect. And they were able to upload it into an AI model. And I don't know if they were able to somehow, through AI, control a fly, or it was something to that effect. They were able to map out the control, like the control mechanisms of how a fly operates through the architecture of its brain being modeled in AI, which is kind of interesting. It's like, all right, where are you going with this? What are your intentions with this? Oh, it's interesting too. I heard somebody say or speculate what I had thought of a long time ago in terms of what this whole experience could be, in terms of what this experience could be, because you know, you hear science talk about the Big Bang, but that kind of conjures up the idea of what we conventionally known as an explosion. You know, like the detonation of something, like, I don't know, dynamite, or however you think of a Big Bang being. But then the idea of God being pure consciousness itself, like God is consciousness. All consciousness is God. They're one and the same. And some of the things that I've read in these other books kind of gave me the thought in my mind of like if you can imagine yourself concentrating on an idea, right? Now let's marry that thought on the scale of God level. Like God concentrating on the idea of this experience, all of this experience, every particle of this experience. Like if you can imagine him sitting there concentrating, or imagine God sitting there concentrating on this idea and compressing this idea in, and then all of a sudden exploding this idea out in every direction and into every particle that is this experience. I heard somebody kind of roughly explain exactly that. I was like, oh shit, I had thought about that a long time ago. I've never heard anybody say that before. That's interesting. Because if you think of it, this experience from that narrative, it kind of gives credence to all the woo-woo things that people believe in, right? The mind over matter stuff, the, science has now, termed something, I forget exactly what it is, but there's something called the God particle that they've given like a nod to by even calling it that. They kind of gave a nod to the idea of a God. If you look into quantum physics and the double slit experiment, it seems like matter has consciousness. because it changes behavior depending on whether or not it knows it's being observed. And now, with that last phrase I just said, matter knowing that it's being observed, now with AI, they're doing like internal tests, within the company itself with these large language models. They're doing these tests that is getting the reaction from AI that seems to indicate that it knows it's being tested. So it reacts in different ways depending on whether or not it can sense that there's a test being ran, which I find super fascinating. Somebody popped it in multiple. I am here. All right. Well, everybody stay patient. And if you have to rely on anybody, seek self-reliance. And that's it. Do good, be good. Let's go to work.